While we're on it.
Okay, we'd like to start this. It's 6 o'clock. I'd like to introduce myself. I'm Greta Pitcher, Secretary of your board. And Raj Grinwis right now is passing out the numbers for each of our candidates. And I would like to welcome each and every one of our candidates. And I respect them, and the entire board does, for them stepping up to the plate and running for this board. Every one of them. Okay, I will outline the process that will be used tonight as you meet each candidate that is running for the board of directors. Each candidate has picked a number. This process allows a sequence of the presenters tonight. Tim will be the official timekeeper. I wrote that down. Is that good? Did you remember that? Yeah. Each candidate will have 5 minutes to introduce themselves. So then we start with number 1 to introduce themselves now? Okay. Then each candidate will be allowed 15 to 20 minutes, and I think we've decided maybe to go 15. And to answer questions from the members that are here tonight. Please wait until a microphone has been provided, as this forum is being taped and will be made available on the Sandy Pines website. Okay, let's start. Who's got number 1? Okay, that is Jim Huck. You have 5 minutes to tell us all and the members something about yourself and maybe why you have stepped up to the plate to be a candidate. Jim.
Well, we all know who I am now. So I've been here, this is my 4th full season in the park. Quite honestly, when I first came here and fell in love with the place, I never envisioned running for the park. But I find that I think I have quite a bit to offer in past experience. I have knowledge in basic things, and I would like to keep this park as nice as when I got here. And I know that's going to take some work, and it's going to take some hours, and not everybody has the time or ability to do that. A little about me: I have 5 children. They've provided us, they've all done their part to provide us with 9 grandchildren. They all love coming out here. It was the biggest reason that we decided to buy a place out here. I am a retired firefighter, fire officer, fire investigator, and arson investigator. I was told that it could cost me votes, but yes, I am from the east side and I'm not Dutch. But I will tell you, I love this side of the state, and my eventual dream is to make this my summer home and have a home down south somewhere and give up my condo on the east side of the state. Of the 5 children, I have 2 children that are career military. They're both right around 15 years. They've both done 4 terms each overseas. I consider myself very patriotic and conservative. Conservative in my values, conservative in financial responsibility. I believe that money should be spent wisely, and there should be a difference between needs and wants. As far as the CRF is going, I intend to vote yes and yes. I think the pool is a great amenity to the park, and having seen what I have seen, I believe that the money is needed to keep this park up and running in the fashion that it has been. And I know there's a shortage from talking to people, and I've talked to a lot of people that have been here 30 and 40 years, and how things used to be and what they want to see, and my goal is to represent the people. One of the biggest things I pride myself on is the ability to listen to people. Doesn't always mean I'll agree, but if the majority of people want something, even if it's not my desire, if I'm elected to represent the people, and I will vote for the people. That promise I will make you. Communication, I believe, could be made quite a bit better in the park. I think a lot of things could be done just simply. I think when a large expense large amount of money is expended on a project, I think if the people actually knew that something was done that isn't visual, a well, heat pumps, whatever, if we knew that this money was spent on it, we'd know where our money was going. I think a lot of people would feel a lot better about that, knowing that that's where the money went and what it was used for, instead of, well, we put all this money in here and they spent it, we don't know where it went. I'm also an ordained minister, but I try and keep my weddings down to people that I know and mostly family, and I do them custom, so it takes a lot of meetings with me to get me to do your wedding. But if you're interested, could be available. No. No. I figure if you're willing to go through with it, that's all you got to pay.
Okay, you got to wind it down a little, Jim.
Okay.
Well, I mean, yeah.
My time?
Yeah.
My time is up?
Almost.
Okay.
3, 2.
I will say I do also understand needs versus wants. I owned my own truck for years. I understand budgeting. I know what it means to know where your money's coming in, where it's going out, and what's necessary and what isn't. And I thank you, and I ask for your support.
Thank you, Jim. Okay, now can we please hear from candidate number 2?
Yeah, Rick Day. We won't ask Jim what his success rate is on the marriages. We'll leave that alone. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Rick Day. I've been a member in the park since 2004. Like many of you, come out here, visit a friend, was invited out, and the next day found a lot that was for sale and purchased it. Been here ever since. So I know that's how the majority of it works. We come out with family and friends. A little bit about me. I was born and raised in Allegan, not too far from here. Married my high school sweetheart, Lori. She's here somewhere. And that was 23 years ago. Got 2 beautiful children. One's attending Ferris in the education program, and we have a son that'll be a senior in high school. So we try to get out here all the time. Even though I look old, I'm not retired yet. I wish I was, but I got a few years to work, so we're not here all the time. We're like a lot of the people in the park. We're trunk slammers or weekenders that come out here and enjoy, our beautiful area. My background is I'm employed full-time by the state of Michigan in the fire marshal's office. I've been a state fire marshal inspector for 17 years. I serve on several National Fire Protection Association committees where it's a consensus document that we put everybody in the room, try to get a consensus on what's going on. We have end users, everybody that has a stake in it, and we come up with a standard that's usable and has everybody's input. And kind of like what, hopefully here, everybody can have some input and we get something that is usable. Politically, I was the mayor of Allegan. I served on the city council for 8 years. I've been on several city, county, state, and national committees, and that's one of the reasons I felt that I've been here long enough is not just to be a talker, but hopefully help be a doer as well. And involved in a lot of processes. We're working to get people's opinions and coming up with a finished product that actually is what works for the majority of the people. I realize that it's not going to work for everybody. You can't please everybody all the time. I'm close to perfect, but absolutely not perfect. If you ask my wife, she reminds me that all the time. So, like I said, a little of my background, I served on several committees, still on a lot of committees as far as financial stuff. I'm the treasurer of the Allegan County Fair. A little biased, but it's the best fair in the state of Michigan. And it's a multi-million-dollar operation, and I've been on the board of directors there for 17 years. So again, work at the county level with a lot of different organizations, groups, and people to try to come up with a consensus and the best product that we can provide. A little bit about, I am voting yes on the CRF. I believe that, as I've stated to a lot of people, what I've heard around the park is it's really not a money issue for the members. It's more of a trust issue. If people really had some input and knew what was going on, and not that anybody's doing anything mischievous, but it's just a communication thing. If it was just better spelled out, that there would be a lot of support. I think that we can get the money passed. It's just the way we go about it and make sure everybody has some input in it and understands where it goes. You know, I concur with Jim that, you know, just the, you know, if you have to fix the dam or you do other things, it's not real sexy, but it has to be done and nobody knows where that money went. You know, it's not always a new pool or a new slide or a golf course improvement or something like that. So I do support that. I believe in investing in the park. As the mayor of Allegan, we built a brand new wastewater treatment plant, a new reverse osmosis water distribution plant. Both were obviously multi-million-dollar projects, and people don't always like that, you know, you have to pay for that stuff, but we have to take care of our infrastructure, and we have to provide for the future, and that's what I look to do. Anybody has any questions or concerns, you know, I'm always open, and that's my thing, is that I'm not always going to do what the membership wants, but I absolutely will try to get your input. And when I say get your input, it don't just mean, well, we have a monthly meeting, you don't come. We need to do whatever we can to get everybody involved and make sure we reach out to them in all the forums to get as much information as we can for the board to make the best decision on what the people want. And it's really all of our part. And just because I'm elected to the board doesn't mean I'm any more smarter or no more than the other 2,149 of you people that are just as educated. I think collectively we can do a lot, and that's what I look to do. So I look for your support, and thank you.
Oh, perfect. Okay. Thank you, Rick. Oh, it is on? Oh, you can hear me. Okay. Well, Janet, I think you're number 3 then, huh?
I'm up, okay.
Oh, put it right up to your mouth, hon.
Oh, turn on. Okay, I'm not so good with this, but how's that? Everybody here? No?
Way up. Put it way up.
Or can I just talk louder?
No,
Is this gonna?
it won't work. You got to put it right. Put it on your chin.
Dear. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. First of all, I'd like to thank you all for coming. This definitely shows that you take the responsibility of your membership very seriously. I don't think I'm going to be roses here in this conversation. I am going to tell you who I am, and I'm going to tell you my experience, and then I'm going to get down to the nitty-gritty. Okay? First of all, I want to let you know why you need to vote for me. I have been a member for over 30-plus years. To say something a little entertaining would be say that my husband and I first came out when our children were just 2 and then a small baby. Oh, did I forget to say the baby was in diapers? And the fact that she was in diapers, we were in a pop-up tent. So that is our first experiences that we had with Sandy Pines. It's been a pleasure to be here. I have so many memories. We were weekend campers. We were vacationers with the children in the summertime. And then we were also retired now, so we can be living the dream, and that's our plan. In my professional career, I have been a director for a healthcare company. I have also been a consultant where I provided AAAHC and JCAHO accreditation. I've also done policies and procedures, healthcare things such as that nature. I've also developed policies and multidisciplinaries, process improvement, and developed customer services that healthcares didn't have, okay? Currently, I'm in the Safety and Security Committee. I hold the position of their secretary. I'm also on the Policy and Procedure Committee, where I use my experience in developing policies in that area. My personal characteristics, oops, that beep it, sorry, will bridge the communication gap that currently exists, and here's the reasons I feel they exist. 1, members' mistrust for the decisions made by the board. No transparency. Incomplete information. Actions like these do not, and I repeat, they do not motivate members. Especially-
Janet, I hate to stop you, but we want to know about you and your family and, you know, what you want to see for the park.
I'm sorry, but that was not stated. It was just said that I get 5 minutes to talk to everyone here.
Okay.
Otherwise, you don't know my platform. You don't know what I stand for. I'm trying to give you an idea of what I am here for. I can tell you all kinds of rosy things about how I love Sandy Pines, but I've been here for 30 years. That alone tells you I love Sandy Pines. And I don't like what's happening. So my platform is just to tell you why I feel that way. Okay? Continue? Yeah. All right? Okay, where are we? Okay, I'll go back because she stopped me at the CRF, and that's real important. I do know that other people told you how they feel on the CRF, correct? So I'm going to tell you. Like I said, it doesn't motivate members when we have these other things are happening, so then people are not going to give dollars, several $million to CRF. And this only widens our division. So we need that transparency. We need that understanding. My promise is to give honest answers, express opposition when the board does not listen to those of the members. It is my desire, and this is me, this is what I want to do, this is my desire, to do the right thing, to abide by the bylaws, and to be an advocate for the membership. That's not anybody else, that's me. That's what I want to do for you. And why is this vote important? You have to know the candidates. You have to know what we stand for. That's why I'm here to tell you my platform. Since whoa, somebody turned it up? Oh, I guess this part's really important because the volume came up. Since the destruction of the indoor pool and adult rec center, there is an option to the board to rebuild these assets without making them contingent upon CRF. That's all I'll say about that. Number 2, because I have this knowledge, it is the board's responsibility to know how the state rules for the campgrounds will affect the Sandy Pines. And the majority rule should stand, not be discarded.
You're getting real close on time, Janet.
Okay, why is it important to vote for me? Because in conclusion, I have the work experience, the skills and talent, serve on committees, I promise to follow the bylaws, and I will abide by the majority of the vote, even though it may not be in a conflict with my personal opinion. Thank you for listening. There was more, but I was interrupted, so we'll just have to ask questions.
Thank you, Janet. Number 4. What happened?
My name is Don Vinduzalar, and just to tell you a little bit about my background, my wife Joyce and I have been members of Sandy Pines for 10 years. We are in Phase 2, Lot 676 on Fawn Rest. However, for 15 years prior to our membership, we came here camping on weekends, and we really found it enjoyable. We have watched this park evolve over the last 30 years from a campground of tents, pop-up campers, and trailers to a resort where many make this a second home. We all have made significant investments in our places and want to see that investment preserved. Because our park is 40 years old, it's time to plan for the future. It's my desire to be a member of a team that will put a plan in place to ensure that our assets, buildings, infrastructure will be maintained for future generations to come. My past career experiences have given me knowledge and skills that will allow me to be an asset on the board of directors. I spent over 30 years in education. I began as a high school teacher, teaching accounting, economics, and U.S. government. Following my time as a teacher, I served 2 different school districts as a business manager. And during that time, I planned and supervised budgets that went all the way from $6 million to $60 million. After 15 years as a business manager, I became a superintendent of schools of a district that had over 400 employees. And tenure as superintendent, because the school district was a growing school district, we had to purchase land, expand the high school by 80,000 square feet, renovate, update 6 elementary buildings, and build 2 new middle schools. Over the course of my career in education, I was involved in over $100 million of school construction. After leaving the field of education, I was mayor of the city of Hudsonville for 12 years. I served for 3 terms, 4 years each. And being the mayor, a lot of what I learned and what I did as a superintendent, I also did as the mayor of the city of Hudsonville. It was an enjoyable experience. So I feel that the knowledge and skills gained over the course of my career will be of great value to serve on the board of directors. Thank you.
Thank you, Don. Now we have number 5. 4? 5.
Hi, I'm Ginny Hager, and I'm from Lot D99 in Phase 6. And the first thing I want all of you to know about me is I love Sandy Pines. If you saw us in the 4th of July parade, I had a big thing across the front of the cart. I love Sandy Pines. And I grew up out here as a kid. My parents had a place out here for 20 years. And they sold in '94, and we weren't part of the park for a few years. And it didn't take us long. In the year 2000, Kevin and I bought a place in Phase 6. We have 3 kids, and we just had a ball growing up out here as a family. We ended up living here in the summers. My kids were in swimming lessons, tennis lessons, kids club. They did it all. We just had fun. We live out in the country at home, so we don't have that neighborhood feel of all the fun things that the kids can do. So this was just a great place for them to grow up in the summer. In fact, they all ended up working out here. Our oldest, Allison, she was a lifeguard out here. She taught tennis lessons, swimming lessons, so it was kind of fun to see all the things she did as a kid, then she could teach others to do. And she loved it. She loves Sandy Pines. All of our kids do. And then our middle daughter, Courtney, she worked at the ice cream shop here for many summers. And we enjoyed that a lot. It was my excuse to go there a lot. And then our youngest son, Isaiah, he also was a lifeguard and on the rec staff, taught tennis, swimming, and so we've been very involved. In fact, our kids still come here every weekend, just about, and they spend time with us on the weekends here, so they still love Sandy Pines too. And one of the things that I want to make sure of if I would become a board member is to make sure that you and your families and your kids and your grandkids and my grandkids someday could continue to love this park the way we love this park and use this park and have all of these great things for everybody to do. In my professional life, I'm a self-employed accountant. I have over 30 years of experience. I worked for a CPA firm when I first started out for 10 years, and then I quit working there to stay at home with my kids. During that time, I started my self-employed accounting business where I worked mostly from home so that I could be with the kids. My husband Kevin and we also own a construction company. So I also work there and I do the finances, and we've had that for about 25 years. So I'm also do the accounting for that business. I feel like these types of experiences with my accounting and finance background provide me with a lot of experience, a lot of opportunity, and a lot to offer to the board in that area of expertise. I hold myself to a high standard of integrity. I am a very motivated person, a very positive person, and I always try my best to see things through to completion. I'm also very active in our community, in our church at home. I served as the treasurer of a local nonprofit organization for 11 years. I was the treasurer of the school PTC club when the kids were growing up because I wanted to be involved in their school. I've been in several positions through our church on committees, on different boards, a lot of treasury positions because that's my area of expertise. I've led Bible studies. My husband and I have been youth group leaders. And I just think that being on these different types of committees and boards, it's really given me the opportunity to learn how to handle situations and conflict and differences of opinion. And I do try my best to move toward the best outcome for all when we have issues that come up. Throughout my years at Sandy Pines, I've seen the park go through many changes also. And I'm very excited about the future of the park. And I want to be part of making sure that this continues to be a great place for my family and for your family.
Your time is getting short, Jenny.
Okay, one more sentence.
You're fine.
Utilizing my financial background and expertise, my aim is to preserve, update, and improve the assets of this park. And that includes me voting yes for the Capital Reserve Fund. I am eager to see the park move forward, and I want to help to create solutions as it grows and changes. I plan to be very transparent to help the board communicate with the members in the best ways possible. And I appreciate your vote, and I hope that you all enjoy what I've had to say tonight, and that you can also say, I love Sandy Pines.
Thank you, Jenny. Okay, there's only one left. Mr. Bursk, go ahead.
My name is C.B. Bursk. As you'll see on the ballot, it's a little different. It's Charles. That's my legal name. Nobody calls me that. It's normally C.B., but I have a little different story about Sandy Pines because the first time I ever came here, I was with my wife, and her cousin had a place here, and I distinctly remember getting in the car as we were leaving and telling her there is no way we would ever have a place in Sandy Pines. Because I couldn't get over all the golf carts and all the people. I think it must have been a holiday weekend, and we didn't have kids yet. And I'm like, that's craziness there. I couldn't believe it. Then we got a camper, and we started camping, and we moved around. My daughter wanted to come here. We had my daughter was born. Her name's Savannah, and she's 9. Or I'm sorry, she's 13 now. My son is 9. But she wanted to come here for her birthday, so we started camping here. And then a couple years later, we put our trailer on a try it before you buy it site. We figured we'd just leave it here for a year, and it's never left. It's got a porch on it and everything else. It was, they sucked us in with that one. But what I found out is once you get into this community, it's like a neighborhood. And I compare it to a neighborhood in the 40s or 50s. You know all your neighbors. There'll be days we don't see kids in our neighborhood because they're all at one person's trailer. Or there'll be days we'll have 15 kids at ours, and we know they're not going anywhere because their parents had the day off, or we had the day off yesterday, so it's our turn to host them all. It's not a big deal. So one of the things that got me into wanting to run for the board is the past couple years, there's things that have gone on in the park that I noticed when we get around our neighborhood campfire, we don't talk about all the fun things we did that day. We talk about the issues that are going on with the park and what we do or don't like. Only way to fix that is to become involved. If you feel something isn't going the way you think it should, you can sit there and complain, or you can get involved and do that. So I've chosen to get involved. I've chosen to run for the board. I've tried applying for some committees and nobody ever got back to me, so here we are. We're going to run for the board. I think I have some unique characteristics that'll help me in my position. I'm a regional sales manager for a large poultry company. I sell and am in charge of building projects 20, 30, 40 million dollars. I understand what building project takes. I understand managing financial resources. Other unique thing is I'm a boat captain. I came from the hospitality industry before I got in my sales job where I'm at now. I understand what it's like to have or work in an industry that only makes money 6 months out of the year, like Sandy Pines. What extra things. I understand having to come up with the creative ways to make extra money in something that you only make 6 months out of the year. So I kind of understand the challenges that the park faces. That's about me. I could go on for a lot more, but I think really tonight's about you guys. I think it's your opportunity to ask us questions. So I'm open to anything you guys want to ask. You know, I want to be involved because I want my kids not to come out here with their kids and say we never have a place here. I want them to go tell their kids why they should and not worry about it. All the golf carts running around and all the craziness on a busy weekend.
Thank you very much, CB, and thank you all of the candidates for giving those introductions. I wanted to help explain this next part just so everyone understands what's going on. So we're going to give each candidate 15 minutes to take questions from the audience. So what that means is we'll go candidate by candidate. So the order that we have written down right now is Jim Huck would be first, then we would go to Rick Day, then we would go to Janet Munger, and then we would go to Donald, and then we would go to CB. And the reason we do it this way, so it's 15 minutes per candidate, and that is so that you as members have time to ask questions. So you're asking your question to only one candidate. If you were to come up and ask a question to all 6 candidates, then it could take a really long time to get that answer. But you can feel free to come up each and every time to ask your question. It's not just one question and you're done. So if you want to ask a question of candidate number 1 and then again a candidate number 3, feel free to do so. So we do have a microphone set up over here. We really do want this to be video recorded and be available for people to watch later on. And so that is the reason why we need the microphone. And we also ask that everyone please be respectful of the candidates as you ask your questions. So let's go ahead and get started. So Jim Huck is our first candidate, if you want to stand, and then the microphone is available for questions.
Somebody's got to go first.
Since you changed the order in which questions are asked, I'm going to have to lump this. My question to you, there have been a lot of rumors in the park and some things, excuse me, I was looking at Dave, but I meant you. There have been a lot of rumors in the park, and these are some things that have come to my attention. I just want to have your take on it as to what you would do. Do you believe in the curfew that we have now? Do you believe in our quiet time that we have after midnight? Do you believe alcohol should be transported on carts? Those are my three questions.
I believe the curfew is midnight. 11 o'clock.
I've always thought it was midnight.
I
It
believe
used to be 11, and then
No.
I was told it changed to midnight.
No, it's 11
It's
o'clock.
11 if you're 18 and under, out and about. It's midnight for noise at your home, if I read the rules and the bylaws correctly. Apparently I have.
Okay.
I think that's a more than, I don't think it should be any later than that by any means. I do feel that, and on the other hand, I don't know that you would really want to make that earlier. I mean, this is, it's a campground, it's a weekend, people come out, And I think most people try and be respectful of their neighbors and not get too loud. But I think if you start telling people you can't have a campfire after 10 o'clock at night, a lot of people are going to be in an uproar. So as far as the current curfew, I'm comfortable with that. I like that under 18 need to be in by 11. But I think the midnight curfew for people sitting around their campfires is fine.
Okay. You also agree with the speed limit that we have?
Right, you know, there was a time when I thought it should be raised, but the thing I've noticed is that it is exceeded quite often, and I'm afraid it's like anything else. If you exceed it, if you exceed the 10-mile-an-hour limit by 3 miles an hour, that doesn't sound like a lot. If you exceeded the freeway speed limit of 70 in the same context, you'd be doing 91. Everybody would say that's too fast. I think the speed limit needs to be low because, one, we have little children that walk out in front of us, and at 15 miles an hour, people are going to be doing 20 plus. And I would be afraid of an accident. I don't think anybody in here that is here to enjoy this park, unless they're having an emergency, needs to go much faster than 10 miles an hour.
My last question is, the other rumor is that the people who get on the board, some of them have an agenda of wanting to fire our park manager. Do you feel that you would like to fire our park manager?
Not at this time. And let me explain on that. I don't have the full inside track on everything. I have had conversations with Gene on different subjects. He's had kind of an open door policy. I would be very much against a new board coming in and firing him immediately, because you would leave the board running the park through the winter with basically until you can appoint a new person. It would become a board obligation, and depending who's elected, a portion of the board's going to be in Florida. I don't think they're going to want to drive or fly home for meetings and do interviews and stuff. So I also think that Gene has enough love for this park that if he was asked to step down and he was going to be replaced, that he would help with the transition. That's my own personal belief, but
So you wouldn't fire him without having somebody else in place?
Exactly.
Thank you. All the rest of you are getting the same questions.
How about the alcohol?
Thank you.
Oh,
Yeah, the alcohol thing.
yeah, I don't think drinking and driving plays well anywhere. I can see where somebody could be transporting something on their golf cart if it's close, but yeah, I think as far as drinking and driving around in golf carts, I don't think that makes any more sense than drinking and driving in cars on the road. So, and after 19 years as a firefighter and prying drunk people out of cars, I kind of bias that way.
Thank you.
I've owned here for 1 week. Okay.
You, Mueller?
1 week. I've sat here and I'm impressed, okay? I don't get impressed by very much, but I'm impressed. These are great candidates. I don't even know, I vote for one. How many slots are available? Can somebody tell me that? Three. Okay, so we're going to get 3 outstanding people to represent us. We should be proud there, right? I have to leave, and I've only one thing has came up, 2 things have came up since I owned here. One is the bathrooms are immaculate. That's the only reason I own it here. The bathrooms are immaculate. As I laid in bed knowing that I'm going to pay $40,000 for a trailer, what kind of investment am I making? I want this place to be beautiful. I want people to beg to get in the place. So I want money spent right, and I want my kids to say, I'm buying down there, Dad. I'm glad that you spoke up and said, so the CRF, I don't care if it's $1,000, I'll pay for it if the money gets spent right, and we have outstanding people here who are going to do it. Okay? The other complaint, and I don't have the answer, I haven't asked the answer, and somebody will tell me here, I'm sure. There's a 3-year wait for a boat tie. At $75 a flipping year, okay? Now, we're talking about money. They tell me, oh, well, those owners are sitting on them because they can sell them, you know, as a closing deal and get more money for their lot. And I'm thinking, doesn't Sandy Pines own that boat time? Don't we write a check to them for that $75? If we made them turn that back in when they lose their membership and the next person on the waiting list comes up, we could charge $150 for that. I'd pay $200. And that money go in the till. Now we can pave some roads, we can put things in. To sit on a boat tie for $75 flipping a year, and then that owner, oh, I have a boat tie with my unit, you can, you know, it makes no sense. Well, the question is, are they deeded? Are they deeded? Can somebody just tell me, are they deeded? No. Or does Sandy Pines own them? Yeah, Jim, do you know if they're deeded?
As far as I know, they're not deeded, but nothing's deeded here.
So the boat tie comes with your membership?
Not always.
How'd that happen?
Well, my understanding is I've been here 4 years,
Okay.
so I don't have 40 years of history.
And I'm not here to create trouble, I just needed an answer, and I figured somebody would know.
I've been on the list 3 years, so don't.
Right, so,
But the boat stakes can be sold with the property. If people give up their boat stake, then they go to the people on the list. Now, I think that it should be looked at due to the fact that there are boat stakes out here that people register boats to or kayaks to, and there's never anything there. And that's a complaint I've heard a lot. It's not just an observation. A lot of people have said people own boat stakes because it increases the value of their property, but they never put a boat there. There's other people that have boats that have to trailer them all the time. So how
I'm
it
just
got
saying
done,
if-
I don't know the answer,
Right.
but I know it's something that should probably.
so
be
at
looked
when
at.
I left you, or you, we go to that first board meeting, we'll get an answer at what we could do to move forward or look into that, because nobody really owns those
I'm not
stakes.
promising nothing at the first board meeting because it'll be my first board meeting.
I got it.
So,
Again, it was a question I had, I figured somebody could answer it, and we still don't have a true answer.
do I think it should be looked at and addressed? Yes. That's the
Thanks.
best answer.
And I'm not going to take any more time. Again, I don't know who to vote for because we're getting quality people here.
You can vote for me.
Well, you know, I'm partial to superintendents because my wife's a teacher and I was a football coach, so, you know, Rick, you're all quality. I'm going to tell you, you are all quality. Thank you.
Thank you.
We have a 5-minute warning, just so you know, if we want to try to squeeze some more questions in here.
Hi, Jim. My question is, last year the membership voted that the Rangers will not have firearms, but yet I still see the board saying they're going to keep reviewing a yearly assessment if the Rangers are going to get firearms. Are you going to go with what the membership said, or are you going to go with the current board and eventually get the Rangers firearms?
Now that's like a 3-part question, so give me a break here. I think I am not in support of firearms for the Rangers. Okay, I am in support of the EMMDs, or EMDDs, commonly called tasers. Now, but that's not what they are. But that's what people think they are. They're a completely different animal. But, and I'll give you a couple reasons why I'm supportive of them. One, I know several police officers, more than several, a bunch of them. I will tell you right now that the average person is more afraid of a taser if they are unarmed than they are of a gun. Because they know in this world, no cop in the world is going to shoot you unless you're pointing a gun at him first. They will tase you. And I think that the Rangers, as a last line of defense, because people abuse alcohol, and even though this is a great place, there's always the possibility of abusing drugs, and this makes people crazy. And if you're going to have somebody out there to try and remediate a situation and somebody wants to attack them, they have to have a reason. And I've heard the argument that if somebody has a pacemaker, could kill them. If you have a pacemaker and you want to argue with a ranger that points a taser at you, that's suicide. I'm sorry. But I am against the guns, and I do believe that the vote was correct, that we don't need guns, the Rangers shouldn't have guns. And one misconception that I am aware of is that when that came out, everybody thought all the college kids that we hire in the summer and stuff out here were going to have guns. That was never part of the plan anyway. But I'm not going to lie, I'm in favor of the EMDs, simply because I think if you're going to send a ranger out there to remediate a bad situation, he needs some form of protection. And I know when they say we can call help and all that, those things happen in a matter of minutes, if not seconds, when they go bad.
Okay,
So that's why I
you
support it.
have to know they've got 2.5 more minutes with Jim. Thank you.
Thank you for this opportunity. I really appreciate being able to be here. I can't stay all night because I got to go to the comedy thing. Anyways, my question to you, first the statement is, I feel very secure here at Sandy Pines. I take my responsibilities as a member and responsible for my guests and my associate members, etc., and take great responsibility for my dog. Thank you. I'd like to know what your opinion is about associate members not being able to sign in guests when rental campers can sign in guests.
I haven't had the opportunity to meet and review any of that. I do believe that needs to be addressed. I don't understand personally either how somebody that has a rental site can sign in whoever they want and an associate member can't. I do know that some of the problems were that when you're an associate, you're supposed to be on site when you have associate members in, and associate members were coming in and bringing in guests, and the members weren't here, and there were some problems with some things. At one point, there was a meth lab in here because they thought their grandson was coming out and taking nice care of their property. And I'm sure he cut the grass while he was there. But no, I don't think it's fair that somebody that comes into camp can bring in as many people as they want, and an associate member has to pay for somebody else in the car or has to get the member to come in and do it. I think that's something that needs to be looked at and refined.
Okay, and to the other candidates, because I'm going to leave in a while, if you wouldn't mind addressing that, I think the audience would appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Oh. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Hi.
Phil Wiles, Lot 1, the one and only. Thank you each for your time. Just for the record here, I do want to state the format's kind of hard from a membership standpoint to come up and ask our question each and every time. So for future reference, please consider maybe giving the members like 2 minutes to ask their question, and then each individual candidate maybe some time to answer the question. But the question is, the CRF fund, I apologize, I don't know, I didn't hear where you stood on the CRF fund. So the question is...
Yes and yes.
Awesome. The CRF fund at the base level did not pass membership last year. How do you feel that it's different? How do you feel that it's different this year? And if you're in support of it, why do you, I guess the question is, why do you, how is it different to you this year, and why should it pass then if you are in favor of it? Thank you.
Okay, it's different. The difference this year is the CRF is money that is absolutely needed to run the park. If people felt before that tying it all together meant even if you didn't want a pool, you had to vote for a pool. So doing it, says it's on, I don't know. Doing it separately, if people just want to maintain what's here because of their personal budget or they don't believe in the pool, they could vote for that. If you want the pool, then you vote for the pool also. The reason that and that they can't pass the pool without passing the CRF is because the park is already short money as far as maintaining capital reserves, and why would you build another building that has to be maintained? I know that there's an argument that, well, we maintained it before. We maintained it and because it was there, but putting something there that's going to cost more money when you're already short doesn't make sense. But that's why I believe it was broken down. And like I say, I'm a candidate, I'm not on the board, so I don't have all the answers to that.
Okay, Jim,
Can I say one more thing?
no, you're good. You're good.
I can't say I'm at N182, anybody can stop by anytime. Oh,
Go
sorry,
ahead.
thank
Oh,
you.
I'm sorry, you can do it. Okay, Rick.
All right, so we're gonna go with candidate number 2 now. So we got Rick Day with a microphone.
Yep, and I'll just run through and answer your questions so you don't have to jump back up again. How's that? Good. Transporting the booze, I'm good with the way it is now. It's not an issue. I've also not had a problem with the speed limit. I don't think that's a big deal either way. I think 10 is adequate. The curfew, I personally feel that's adequate, and most people, again, with a lot of these rules, it's, you know, you have to have a rule and a baseline, but, you know, if you're having a campfire at your site with a couple friends and you're not being totally obnoxious, it's not like they pull up and spray your fire out and say, you got to go to bed, it's 12 o'clock. But, you know, I think it's, a lot of this stuff is in, you'll hear, it's a little common sense, folks. I mean, we don't need all these people to tell us, you know, rule after rule after rule. If you're just courteous with each other and use a little common sense, it goes a long ways. So the curfew, and as far as firing Gene, I didn't even know I was going to be emperor for a day, but if, you know, the president does report directly to the board, and if that person is not fulfilling their obligation, then absolutely I would vote to get rid of them. I have no agenda to get rid of Gene. I've only talked to the gentleman a couple times. So is the thing about on day one firing him, like I said, I guess they had a lot more power than I even dreamed of, but that's not going to be the case. Our friend with the boat stakes, he's left. That's something that needs to be addressed through the administration in the office. And then that's another thing, you know, at the board level, we should be 10,000 feet, 30,000 feet. We shouldn't be dealing with the day-to-day little things that the administration does. If that's the case, that the board of directors has to deal with every little issue like that, then we don't need all the office staff. We'll just deal with it and we'll divide the money up. The firearm thing, I'm absolutely against the Rangers carrying guns. I mean, the majority of the park, even if it's not a super majority, has been very adamant. They're not a police department. They're not trained. They have no business, no desire to even be going down that path. That the guns is an absolute no. I will not support that. You can write that down in blood. I will not vote for our Rangers carrying guns. That's a not issue. The associate member thing at the phase-to-phase and the current board, I won't speak for them, but that's an issue that they're working on now. They've heard that, you know, that's been brought up, and that issue is being addressed. And again, some of that stuff it goes back to common sense, folks. The rule's been there forever. It's just now somebody's read it and said, oh, this is what it says. We got to start implementing it this way. You know, sometimes you got to look at past practice, not just what's written in the book, but what we've actually done as a community. And if it needs to be changed, change it. You know, that's all that can happen there. The CRF fund, how is it different this year? It's just in a different format. I don't know where that gentleman went from lot 1, yep, in the back. It's a different format. It's the same amount of money. I differ a little bit on the part with how are we, you know, we got to maintain what we have, and we have this obligation. We shouldn't build new. I'll go back to, as a board member, I have one vote, and I'm no smarter than the other 2,149 of you. And if you want a new building, then we'll build a new building. If you want to pay for it, then that's what we're going to do. With that said, I do take the board, and they say, well, we have an obligation to make sure things are funded. And they do. But the obligation isn't to tie your hands and say, well, you got to have this before you can have that. Their obligation is if there's not money or there's something happens, there's already a process where they can vote to raise all of our dues to pay for that. That's what their obligation is. When they say, well, you know, you're not smart enough because you shouldn't be able to build a pool if you can't have this. Well, I'm sorry. I'm a pretty important guy, but I'm not as, collectively, we all got to do it together. I'm not going to tell you that, you know, you can't have this unless you have that. So, you know, that don't work for me. But that's how it's
Just
different.
on that topic, Capital Reserve Fund, I'm going to go back. I've only been a member 2 years. I'm Jeff Festian, Lot 394. And 4 or 5 years ago, I think Gene was given directive to build a operational reserve. And I've heard differing numbers that it's 1.3 million, $3 million that has been reserved 180 days worth of operational fees. And that's been built over 3 or 4 years. So I guess if he's built that reserve and that's sitting here for the benefit of the park in case something happens, fees haven't dropped in that time frame. So my understanding is we'd be able to continue to build that funding. Now, if we built $1.3 to $3 million already through getting that operational reserve, can that money then be continued to be raised and shift that to a capital improvement fund? You know, what happens to this $1 million plus that's been generated? Isn't that going to be continue to be generated? This is a very consistent monetary flow. You know, I would guess you have a consistent cash coming in from the 2,150 members that pay their dues annually. I mean, someone doesn't pay, they're out. You sell the lot, you get another person. So it's not like you have bad debt in here. I'm just curious, we've built this reserve fund in the operational side. Can't the same mentality be used to build it on the capital improvement side?
Well, I'll give you my opinion. As Jim said, we're not on the board. I mean, the board transferred that $1 million from operations to capital. Gene did state at a phase-to-phase that there's $3 million on the operational side in a reserve fund, and that will fund 180 days of operation. That's what they said, not as a candidate. I'm just clarifying what you said is exactly what I heard too.
And I'm doing the math in my
Yep.
head to say
And,
2,000 lots at 200 a year for 10
And they
years.
they transferred the $1 million from the operational fund to the capital fund to pay the matching grant portion for the 2 new restrooms in phase 3. So that will be completely 100% paid for. So there's no obligation there. And I think what the intent was, again, and that's really not the format, I'm not speaking for them, just repeating what was said at the meeting, was that nitpicking isn't really the proper term, but that was said several times. All the
Yeah,
minor
I don't-
nitpicking for
yeah.
the fees and
Sure.
the different things, because the operational budget, and again, just from what I've learned
The fees
is.
generate the revenue, and you're talking, we're not nitpicking, we're talking $1 million+ worth of.
Right, no, that's the terminology that was
available.
used. That's
Yeah,
not my
I
terminology.
hear
But
ya.
they would eliminate some of the fees for all the different things, and then that fund would be generated. So
I guess it was a question, I appreciate your answer. I'm just, for all the candidates to think about that concept of we've generated this huge reserve for 180 days. One, I'm not convinced that we need that much cash for an entity that has a very continual stream of income from a dedicated member base. We all pay our fees and we all pay our dues. So I'm not sure we need that much in reserve. And if we do have and have built it up over the past 3 or 4 years, boy, it seems like we could do the same thing for the next 3 or 4 years and generate the same cash flow for capital
right,
improvements.
and all I'll say is I agree that's something, and the budget is a year-to-year thing. It's not, so, you know, as they adjust it and we look at it going forward. But I do agree, there is a general stream of money that, you know, what does that money go for? And that's a good question. Correct. There's a lot of obligation.
My question is to you and probably the rest of the board. I was off for 3 months due to surgery, and so I guess I spent a lot of time on this thing, on the internet. And I just feel that this whole forum deal, you know, it just seems like it's tearing this park apart. Amen. It seems like there's 10 or 15 people in here that just live on this thing, and you know, come back to the nitpick. You know, it's Section B, so, you know, bylaws this and everything else. And I would just like to say, I don't know, I wish somehow that could get controlled, and, you know, just what what your opinion is. I know it's a free
Yeah,
deal, but
and
it's-
that's with all due respect. I mean, even my wife, some days I'll read it and I'm a busy guy, but other
Yeah.
times I'm like, I just can't take it. It's
Yeah,
too
well,
nauseous, and
that's
then, you know,
the way I
and
was,
I'm not
and
on
I-
it. But that don't mean, again, I
I'm
feel
back-
that people should have a forum, whatever that format
I
is, and if
agree.
they want to
I
voice their
agree, but
opinion,
it
and
just
as a
seems that it's so negative.
well, yeah, it works both ways. Some people might think that that's the only way they get information. I'm not going to censor anybody. That's not my role as a directors to tell people. My whole platform is hopefully we're going the other way. We'll do whatever we can to make it more accessible. So what if we got to pick through all the BS? I mean, you know, that's just life. We'll deal with it. But we got to have some way to get people involved where they can get the information, not feel intimidated or not feel that they're going to be picked on. You know, and like, you know, I applaud all these folks up here. We're all good people. We're all here for the same reason. So is the existing board. We may not always agree. You know, everybody might have a different idea on what their love of Sandy Pines is, but at the bottom, you know, at the end of the day, we should all be on one mission, and that's to make this place financially viable, safe, and have as much fun as we possibly can. That's why we're here. I guess I'm not objected to it if they have the proper training, you know. Are you for the taser?
And just for the recording, the question was, are you for the taser? If we can please use the microphone just so that we get our questions on the recording.
And I'm sorry if I missed that. That was one that somebody had asked, and I tried to catch all those so you didn't have to ask again. But just, you know, I think that there's again, they're not a police department. We need to quit kidding ourselves. You know, they're supposed to be park rangers. They're supposed to be our friends. They're supposed to be here to assist us, you know, and I want to see more emphasis on the medical training and all the things they can do. At the end of the day, folks, they're not a police department. Don't kid yourselves. Anybody else? I can't talk unless you ask a question.
You're doing pretty good, Rick.
Well, you know, I'm afraid of groups and people. I'm shy talking in front of them.
All right, well, if there's no more questions, we can move on to the next candidate.
No, Janet.
So Janet Munger is up. And if we can please come up to the microphone for the questions.
Okay, I think someone over here had questions on alcohol in the golf cart. I didn't bring a pen, so I didn't write them down, so I may remember all of them, but I may not. So if I forget one, please let me know. Oh, you wrote the thanks. Okay. I do not feel that alcohol should be permitted. I think that we do have rules on these things, and I think most of the things you asked about are in the rule book. Okay. The other thing is the speed limit. I was on the Safety and Security Committee. One of the things we worked on diligently was to maintain the speed limit, to help other members know why that speed limit was important. We also advocated for the members and all your children when we had the signs put out there and said, you know what, if we have a sign, let's get a sign so they know how fast they're going, because we want to give you the benefit of a doubt. I mean, you know when you're going 35 on those big carts? Well, we're going to give you the benefit of the doubt and let you see it for yourself. And I am so proud that all of the work that everyone did on that committee, because guess what? The speed limit is the same, but the speeds are much, much less. Let's see. As far as associates signing in and the campers sign in, I do believe that's also already in there. Members. It is the members' responsibility. We pay, as members, the monies for this park. If associates are allowing people to come in, then that's not the way it works. But if campers are doing this, that is already in the laws, in the rules, that they're not supposed to be. If they're doing that, and you see that, one thing we said also, see something, say something. So we have to know. They're not supposed to be doing it. Boat stakes. As far as boat stakes are concerned, I think that's an issue we should be looking at, but I do not believe that it's going to change because, like you said, people who have already purchased the properties, and most of the boat stakes are with the properties that we purchased as part of our membership. And now you say, no, you didn't pay. Well, yeah, you did pay something, but you paid that extra for your membership. Your membership then came up for that price. That's why those people are balking at saying, you know what, you're not taking my stake. It goes with my property, and that's why. So it's something that is going to need a lot of conversation to get them to understand. Okay, I'm waiting for this one. Okay, guns and tasers, okay? I do not, and will I ever, believe that the Rangers should carry a gun. That's my personal opinion. Now we can agree to disagree, but I do not believe that that should be the case. My concern is this. We had a vote on it. Even though it was changed to an advisory vote, it was a vote. It is then the responsibility, if I become a board member, to make sure that I've listened to the members. That should not have gone to an advisory vote. And that's, again, my opinion. This is something that you need to know and understand. This is not going away. Why isn't it going away? Because in June, it was brought up, and it will be revisited because there's already money that's been set aside because we've hired a new person to revamp the safety and security. And I am not telling anything that is confidential because you guys all can read it in the newsletter. The CRF. Am I supposed to all these? Yep. Okay, all right. I just didn't know who's ever here, so. The CRF, okay. I mentioned an option. This is a very dangerous precedent. I know there's going to be eyeballs rolling because I'm going to tell you about it. I read it to you. And I know someone here mentioned bylaws. We need to know those bylaws. Those bylaws are our Constitution, okay? So if we're a board member, we need to know them and we need to understand them. And we need to, as members, we need to understand how they're going to affect us. This can affect us because in Article 3, Section A and B, I already explained to you, if they wanted to replace and rebuild the pool that was destroyed, they can without a member's vote. So this can be done. The board can vote on that and actually do this project. They can only do the one project, and it has to be a replacement due to destruction. And to my knowledge, it was destroyed, yes? Yep. So if that's the case, we need to be concerned about how we're voting, because if we vote yes for the pool and no for the CRF, we're sending a precedent and a referendum that we want the pool. But keep in mind that that's what they will do. They do not have to do that. Okay? Let's see. Okay. I guess it said, is there any more questions?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions. One is, how do you feel about an election or proposals being twice a year rather than at the end of the year, where we have to suffer through the whole year again to do the same thing? If we had it in the spring and it was revamped and voted on again in the fall, maybe we could work with it. But otherwise, we lose a whole year. I wonder how you feel about that.
Exactly, because what happens is when something is rushed, you don't get the opportunity to know what's going on. Members don't get knowledge, and we need to be knowledgeable consumers. We need to understand how much is this actually going to cost me, and is there a business plan that's going to direct that amount so I know what's happening. And maybe the first time we didn't have a business plan, but although we did ask for one, it didn't happen with the CRF. But it doesn't mean that we can't start at the beginning and a little bit earlier, have it under discussions, come up with what we're actually going to do again later on.
How do you feel about those that use the pool, pay for the pool? Well, I mean, at least pay for the maintenance of it. If everything is free in this world, then we all pay for things we don't use.
All right, I have a question back for you. How do you feel about people using the pool who aren't even members?
Well, that would go along with those that pay, that use the pool,
But we do
have to
not
pay.
have a way at current to know.
Currently, we don't have a way, but we could have a way. It would be very simple with a swipe of a card or whatever. And you didn't address the,
I just wanted to know your feelings about
yeah.
that as well. So what I'm saying is then, your question being that you want to know about whether or not we should let people who are coming and swipe the card, then they pay money by their site. So we're going to have to not only know who's coming in the pool, then we actually have to have the individuals who's using it pay for the maintenance of the pool.
Well, it would be a small token, maybe 50 cents a time or something to that effect. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out as a possibility. I know we'll get some boos, but, you know, pay for what you use.
Exactly. Well, I guess we've already voted on that several years ago because I'm not a golfer, but I do pay for the golf in our assessments.
You don't pay for the golf, you pay
We
for
pay
part
for
of
the-
it.
right, for the
And
assessment.
$50,000 comes back to the board every year for the last few years. So $50,000, I think, is a pretty good fee. So when you say $150 goes toward the golf course and $50,000 comes back, most people don't even know that. So, you know, that's a moot point.
But it is still, someone paying, you ask the question, should they pay? And I do not believe they should pay for usage.
You don't think they should pay for anything? But we should pay for golf, right?
Pardon?
We should pay for golf.
If you're going to play, yeah.
But if you swim, you don't pay. Okay.
We're at a 5-minute warning here. We'd like to get some additional questions in here.
Like I said, we may agree to disagree, but in my
That's
opinion,
fine.
if someone came
That's
up with a
fine.
better
That's
explanation, I might consider, but at this point, no, I don't believe in that.
Did she answer your question? Are you, John, do you have any more questions?
Oh, yeah, I did have one,
Well,
but
go ahead.
No, you're up.
Hi, I'm Carolyn Nielsen, and I actually have two questions. How do you stand on the CRF?
I vote no on the CRF.
No?
But right, with the explanations that I gave.
Okay. And you had said in your statement that there was no transparency. Can you give me an example? Because you said that you would can you give me an example of transparency?
Okay. No transparency was an example of, were you told that...
No, that's not what I asked. Would you give me your example of transparency? What would you do?
Okay. All right. An example would be that I would definitely have sent to the members an information stating that there had been problems or difficulties with the voting the way they had it, and changed it from a regular vote to advisory. And I would have checked to see if that was even legal to do.
Could you make clear? I've lost you. Am I the only one? I think we're lost. Could you
on
be more-
the guns, that's what I'm talking about, was the firearms. It was changed to an advisory.
What do you mean it was changed to an advisory? I don't understand what you're saying. The way it was stated, it was an advisory. That's what you voted on. You did not vote on no guns. I'm not in favor of guns. I never have been in favor of guns.
Right, but that was the change.
That's not the
Okay,
issue.
But that's a change, and that's not transparency. I would have let them know that that was happening. No one knew that that was happening, and that's what I'm calling about transparency.
Okay, so what you're understanding is that the way it was stated was not clear? Is that what you're saying? I don't understand what you, they
No, that
voted
the
out. You're
fact that
talk-
they did it without telling the members and changing the vote.
No, 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 no.
What she's saying is that the members had no idea that you were going to be voting in an advisory vote at the June meeting on the new change. We
Right.
had no idea. So us as members came and sat down, and we heard, okay, this just passed, and we were all, most, if you go back to the seat, or go back into the video and look at the video, you will notice that every single, most of the members in here, and I'm speaking for myself, were appalled that that passed. That are, that now we can.
Okay, so,
Exactly.
wait a minute, wait a minute.
Now,
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
transparency is where you.
We only have one mic, I think.
Transparency is where the board actually tells us what we're doing.
All right, so we're going to
I
respect the
think-
person with the microphone at the
Okay.
moment.
Can you clarify, when you say transparency, what we voted on last August, do you understand what was voted on? I think that's
I
where
understand
it
that-
was the misunderstanding.
Okay, I understand that we voted as an advisory. It was an advisory vote because it was at the very end, but when we went to actually vote on it, we were not told that it was going to be just an advisory vote. We thought we were actually going to the polls and voting that yes or no, and that was it. And that's not what happened.
Okay, so what I understand as far as what you're telling me is that the transparency, that it wasn't clear and that people, when they voted, they didn't understand what they were voting? Is that what you're telling me?
No, I'm saying that it should have been told us.
No. Okay, you're saying
Okay, I
it should
think
have
we're
been.
going to have to step in on this
Okay.
one.
All
I
right.
think this one's been addressed good enough, so.
Okay, so, thank you. You would vote no for the CRF, is what you're saying? Okay. I'm sorry?
And yes for the pool.
You would vote yes for the pool and no for that. But you understand what that means this time, right?
I understand that, and I understand what it means for this Article 5, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do we have one more question for Janet?
I'd like to thank everybody for coming up here and putting it all out online for us, you know. I'm Don Delano, Site 804, been on the Rules Committee and off the Rules Committee. My question to you, overbuilding in the green area, our park is expanding, building and building and building. Where do we park? When do we stop the growing of the green area and encroachment? We have rules that's never been abided by, and it just keeps going and going. How do you feel about that?
I guess it would have to be a meaning of, are we going to abide by the rules? If the rules are there and stated, then they needed to be upheld. If we don't uphold our rules, then why do we have them? If it's an inspection and someone says, well, I don't want to do it, and I've been told when they do that, they've told the person who purchases the property to change it. It doesn't happen. So it needs to be addressed. As a membership and as the board, what are we doing? And is it coming back to us as a recommendation from the Rules Committee? And if it does, then it needs to be addressed and voted on by the board.
All right, well, thank you very much, Janet. And it looks like next up, we will have Donald.
Let me just run through quickly some of the items that were listed, the curfew and the speed limit. I don't have any problem with the curfew as the way it stands. And I think 10 miles an hour is fast enough in a park. We have a lot of little kids in this park, and that's not a problem for me. As far as boat stakes, that's maybe, I've never really looked at that issue, but I guess if it is an issue and we get enough feedback from members, then I think the board maybe ought to take a look at it and see perhaps maybe it ought to be changed. But I think there has to be sufficient feedback in order for the board to address issues. If they just got a couple of people, then I think, perhaps the board shouldn't take it out. But if we get enough feedback from individuals throughout the park, then I think maybe an issue ought to be dealt with. The Capital Reserve Fund, I'm totally in support of the Capital Reserve Fund. I think this is the first time this park in 40-some years had put together a long-range planning in order to look for the future and in order to say, well, we're going to sustain this park. I've been in school districts and in many different communities, and this is not unusual at all. I have seen so many long-range plans and with capital reserves that are developed for cities, for school districts, and I think it makes good sense. I think it's the first time, as I said, that this park has done that, and I think it was needed. So I would support the Capital Reserve Fund. As far as the gun issue is concerned, I know at the last meeting, the board had made a decision to restructure, to separate safety and emergency services. And because the board looked at that very carefully, and I think that's the way in which this park is structured. We're structured very much like a city, a township, or a county. The way we govern ourselves is through a republic form of government. We can't all come together and make decisions. So the reason we have a board of directors is they come together and provide policy and make decisions on our behalf. So they made a decision last month, and I thought it was a good decision, and so I support it. Now, you may not agree, but that's okay. But the board made a decision, and we elected those board members to do that on our behalf. So I think we ought to support the board members when they make a decision. As far as associates bringing members in, my wife and I also have an RV, and we do a fair amount of travel, and we have in the past camped a lot at many different parks in the state of Michigan. And if we're going to be someplace maybe for a week or two and friends want to come up, I don't have a problem with that. And I think if it's a money issue, then perhaps the member ought to register if associates take friends along, because that does generate a revenue for the park. Did I miss anything that was already talked about? We got any questions that anybody would like to come up to the mic and? Yeah, I don't have a problem with a curfew the way it stands.
But your feelings about our park manager, would you have an agenda?
I totally support the park manager. I happen to know about his past. He was a very successful businessman. And like I said, this is the first time this park has ever had a long-range plan to provide for maintenance of the infrastructure, for buildings, for assets. Any organization, whether it be a political entity or not, if you don't have a plan for the future, you basically are planning to fail. In the city of Hudsonville, where I was mayor, we had 10-year plans. And we had 10-year plans for the water system, for the sewer system, for the streets, for the storm sewer system. It would be absolutely crazy not to plan for something that is that important to our citizens. So I think the capital reserve proposal that is before us, I think it's something that was needed, and I totally support it. Yes.
Thank you for your experience. You seem like you're a pretty knowledgeable man and you want to plan really well. So I just have a question. I just want to be clear. Did you say you would or wouldn't support the guns and the tasers?
You know, what I have learned in my career is that you never make an important decision based upon emotions, or you say, I think. If this comes up again, I would say that the board should put in motion a plan to look at it very carefully and to conduct due diligence. And I have done that many times in my career. In fact, what I found out, that if you put the right process in place, the process will give you the decision, or it will give birth to the solution you're looking for. So I would say, if we looked at that very, very carefully, and we consulted with a lot of experts, and the decision was, based upon that study, it's not necessary, I would support that decision. If it came out the other way and they said, you know, it probably is important that you do that, I would then support it. But I think you got to put a process in place and do your due diligence and look at it very carefully. I've heard a lot of comments, and I would have to tell you, a lot of the comments that I hear is based upon emotion, or I think. So I think it has to be studied very carefully and very thoroughly. And if the answer is we ought to do it, then we ought to do it. But if the answer is we don't need to do it at this time, then we don't do it.
So for guns or tasers, I'm hearing you say you need to know more data and to understand it better, and I appreciate that response. So then my next question would be, at that time, would you turn it back to the members? Because I got to tell you, I want to know the data too. I would like to see, like, how many times do we actually need to do it? What's the training out here? You know, what kinds of reinforcements are you using? Because I got to tell you, I've been first on scene on an accident out here, and I would be scared to death if you put a taser in that poor kid's hand who didn't know anything they were doing. And I just wonder, how big of a risk is it? I have friends who are police officers. I'm in the healthcare business, and most of them say, absolutely not, don't touch it. You don't understand the risks from an electrical standpoint, what you're doing to the heart. I mean, I could go on and on with it. So I guess I want to know, is that coming back to us as members?
So,
If we have questions, please
Yeah.
use the microphone, and let's maintain respect.
well, I would go back to what I said. It has to be thoroughly investigated, thoroughly studied. And if the answer comes down, we should not, I would support that. But if it came down and said, you ought to, and I think there would be sufficient reason on either side for the board to make a decision. Yes.
My question for almost all of you would be, there's a rumor about a pool in Phase 2. Is that something that you would support with the CRF or whatever it is? And regardless of whether or not the indoor pool gets built, would you still support it? Would you support it either way, whether the indoor pool came or didn't? That's my question.
Well, I think the indoor pool is pretty important. That's why I would support the two proposals. And I think down the road, and when I've talked to some of the staff, that proposal for a pool in Phase 2 is not something that's going to happen within the next couple of years. It's going to come later. And I think, based upon the record of this board, they don't go out and spend money unless they have it. And if the funds are there, and it can be maintained, and the board comes back and says, we have decided that a pool in Phase 2 is something that we ought to provide for our members, then I would support it. But just to say we ought to have a pool and let's go out and spend the money, I think it has to be looked at very carefully, and it has to fit within the budget, and then you would get a pool in Phase 2. But if the funds aren't there, it wouldn't happen. Any other questions?
All right, well, thank you very much.
All right, I'm going to try to get, if I forget something, bring it up. Alcohol on carts. I think we all pretty much agree that that's a dangerous situation. To me, that's drinking and driving, and absolutely should not happen. The speed limit, I am, for one, think that is very important to keep it at 10. I'm a huge fan of those signs, you're driving at whatever speed. Some of the golf carts do go very very much faster than I think they should. So love the signs, love the speed limit, love people abiding by it. Curfew, quiet time, very important. Again, I agree with them. When our kids were young, sometimes they would come driving in the driveway at 11 p.m. and where mom's standing there, or dad's standing there, but we abided by it. I think it's very important. Quiet time also, I think midnight is pretty fair. I haven't heard any abuse of it. I hope we're all neighbors and friends and that we're quiet. You know, there are some times when I am at a fire past midnight, but we realize that and we do keep it down. So I think those are important rules. My opinion on the associates signing someone in, just a little different opinion on that. As a member, I feel responsible, and I believe I ultimately am responsible for anybody that comes into this park that I would sign in. Right down to the fact where our friends that come in once in a while laugh, yeah, if I get a speeding ticket, you get it and it goes on your record. That's true. We are responsible as members. Our kids are all adults. And if they need someone to be signed in, for example, tonight we signed in my daughter's boyfriend. I'm the lot owner. I want to know he's coming, and I will sign him in. That I feel very strongly about that. The camper issue, I don't know enough about. Is that a rule? Can campers sign people in? I don't know. I guess my opinion in that would be, if they can sign someone in, again, I believe they're liable. If that is the case. I honestly don't know the rule on that. But I would think as a camper, if they can sign someone in, I'm okay with that. But again, I believe they are responsible, just like we as members are responsible for our guests. The boat stake issue, again, I guess I didn't realize there was such a shortage. We have boat stake, and I appreciate the fact that we have it. I know that, for example, somebody near us is selling, and they consider that boat stake in front of their place an asset. And they maybe did pay more for their place because it included a boat stake. So I guess I can understand that thinking, that if you bought in, you maybe paid a little more, you have the boat stake. I think you have a right to keep that boat stake. You're paying for it every year. If you stop paying for it, then you give it up. But as long as you're paying for it, I believe that's your right. Oh, guns and tasers. That's a sticky wicket for me. I'm not in favor of them. Let me put it that way. I'm not in favor of the Rangers carrying those types of weapons. I never have been, and I do not see that I ever will be. I do appreciate some of the changes they're making with the Ranger staff. I think they're doing some training as far as like being able to talk someone out of a situation. They're getting some extensive training so that hopefully they wouldn't ever have to have a point where it would come to they would need weapons. I don't know all the ins and outs of it, but that's my stance on it at this time. The Capital Reserve Fund, I believe it is very important, very important. I personally set aside money. As a family, we set aside money in case things are going to deteriorate, things that are unforeseen that might happen, and just the basic upkeep of your home and your property. Now, a place like Sandy Pines, it's overwhelming to think of how much there is here to keep up and to maintain. And the park is going on 50 years. things aren't going to last forever, and it is important to look to the future and set aside money so that we can keep this park beautiful for us, for our families, and for the next generations. I think that is extremely important. And the indoor pool, I also think that I would love to see an indoor pool back here. I personally, like we were talking about, pay for it if you use it. I probably wouldn't use it at this point, but I still see it as an asset to the park and an asset to us as members for those that use it and those that don't. It's an asset. The Phase 2 pool. I did hear something about that at one of the face-to-face. You know, my vision for this park is to probably someday down the road have another outdoor pool. I think the one we have, the water park, it's amazing, it's great, it's full, it's busy. That's one of the complaints, it's so busy. So if we could at some point, when there is money available, I don't know if that would be something that would have to come to a vote. I'm sorry, but I don't know enough about that. I would like to see that something like that come to a vote. But I see that is very far in the future, but I would be really excited about it because I think that we need more pools. What am I missing? Am I missing something? Oh, the manager, firing Gene. I would never come on a board with a mission to fire someone. I respect Gene. I respect the job he has done to our park. He, in my opinion, is a great asset to this park. And even if I didn't think that way, I would never come into a board with the intention of firing the person in charge. That's not the way I roll. What was the other question? I'm sorry.
Green area parking? The other question.
Oh, yes. The green area?
Yeah, the overbuilding of the green area that we have in this park. Do you live in an area on your side that it's overbuilt with garages and garages and garages? And do you park in the green area at all?
I have to be honest, we live on, across from the street from us is total green area, flat. There's no trailers, no nothing. And there's tons, that's all it is, open area. And we do park there from time to time.
And all the guests that comes into this park, we have garages after garages built around this whole park. And they keep building and building and building. When does it stop building? When do we put rules into effect that you can't encroach into the green area? There's so much encroachment into these green areas, it needs to be stopped because we just keep growing. We don't become a campground no more. We become a resort. And then when the city or state comes in here and starts looking around and somebody wants to build something and they get mad because they didn't get it built, and then somebody says, well, let me go look at 20 other houses that the rules and the park inspectors and the president of our park, let's go by. Right around this park, as board members, right around this park, write down how many violations you see in this park. That's a challenge to every one of you guys and the ones that are on this board. Right around, tell me how many violations are in this park. Overbuilding, fences, you name it, it's here. And pretty soon, we don't become a resort, we become a city because now somebody's gonna look at this as a good tax revenue. When the people come in here, they're gonna look at this, the cities. You know, you're gonna get the one first mad person to come in here and says, I want to build this, I want to add on the second section of my house. And the park inspector says, no, you can't. Well, why? There's 15 other ones here that's broke the rules here. Why can't I do that? Then this person goes into the township, says, come on over here, I want you to look at this. Township starts coming over here and looking, now what do we have here? Then the next person, then the next person. Then pretty soon, we're in trouble here. This ain't going to be a park no more. This is going to be a place that's going to be taxed. Think about it, board members.
Bill Vanderwall, D165. I'm in Phase 6, have been for 11 years. My piece of property basically is very similar to everybody else's. 40 by 80? When I got a permit for my garage, I put it on my lot. I didn't put it in the green area.
No, but he's talking about the parking in the green area. Parking the cars.
Yeah, he's also talking about the garages. The other comment I'd like to make, I'd like to piggyback on Mr. Van Dusseler's comment that he made about if you don't have a plan, you're planning to fail. I don't know how many of you last year were here after the vote went through and it wasn't passed, and someone raised a point to Gene and said, now that this is passed, what is your plan B? What are we going to do about the onion? Because of the shape it was in. I don't think it had to be torn down at that point in time yet, but the point was we had to have a plan B. And Gene said, we don't have a plan B. If you don't have a plan, you plan to fail. So I guess the question that I have to each and every one of you prospective board members, had you been on the board a year ago, what steps would have you taken to have a plan? One of the comments that was made last year was, you mean we're going to wait a whole year before anything's going to happen? That's not planning. At that point in time, they should have formed a committee, or should have put the long-range committee and said, look, let's add some new members with it. What does the park want? What are they willing to pay for? I think the CRF last year got voted down because I don't think they did a very good job of communicating. This year, I'm reading in the footprints, the proposal, as far as the vote, as far as the dollar amount, what the vote was, the two-part vote was not even mentioned in the footprints as the vote. It talked about it. Gene had a letter, Vice President had a letter, but there was not a proposal saying this is the proposal. The other thing I don't like is the pool is being replaced, the onion, and I think it's a good idea. We need that. But they're trying to hold it over our heads and saying, you're not going to get that pool unless you vote for the other. And I think that's wrong. So I guess CB, let me ask you.
We are
Okay.
on Ginny right now.
Oh, anybody. Let me ask you, had you been on the board last year when that question came up to Gene and saying, what is Plan B? What are we going to do for next year? Gene said, we have no plan. I think, and someone raised a point at that time and said, look, we have to put something together. We have to put a proposal together. Why wait and postpone another whole year? And that's what happened. Here we are, a year later, and nothing's happened. And
All right, well, let's give Ginny a chance to respond here.
I do see, I was not in on any of that, so give me a little grace there. I do like having plans, and I think it would be very important because that's a good question. What's going to happen if this doesn't go through now? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know if they have other plans, but my fear right now is that next year they're going to come and ask for money for this. Next year they're going to come ask for money for that. Then the next year they're going to ask for money for that. And the way I understand right now is that they're trying to have the long-term plan so they're not coming back with another question, another one, another one, another one. And that's how I see what's going on right now. If this doesn't happen, I would be all about trying to figure out what's next, because I don't know what's next.
to go back to my original question, how would have you voted, or what's your proposal for laying it out? What should we do? I mean, I'm aware that we can have votes each and every year for this proposal, that proposal, where this CRF basically is putting it all together. But if this gets voted down again, it's another year wasted. And that's what I want to prevent.
I agree.
I don't want to have an edge. I've been here 33 years. I love Sandy Pines. My family loves Sandy Pines. I don't want to be negative. I want to be proactive.
Yeah.
But I don't like to be, I'll give you this if you vote for that. To me, that doesn't cut it. Each thing ought to be done on its own merits.
All right, well, we are at time. So Ginny, if you want to give a quick response, and then we can turn it over to CB.
I wish I had a good answer for you. I really do. I don't know what the future holds if that doesn't go through, but I will do my best to make good, firm, sound decisions and work as hard as I can to find a solution to that, because I think it's important.
I'm going to do a little bit of a change. I'm going to go to the last question because I was the person that was here at that last board meeting. There was 2 of us that asked the same question. And I believe my term to the board was, you're sitting here licking your wounds. What are you going to do about this? They didn't have an answer. We suggested the committee. That didn't go anywhere. I inquired over the winter, what's going on with this? Nothing's happening. It was rather appalling to me. One of the things that they could have easily done in the very beginning last winter was start working with an engineering company to come up with a plan to present to the members this year to say, okay, here's what we're going to do for an indoor pool. Yeah, they might have had to spend $10,000 to do that, but that $10,000 would have probably assured the project would have gone through because they would have had more accurate dollars and a better plan in place. Now I'm exactly with you. We've wasted another year. We run the chance of this CRF not passing and it not happening again, and I don't know what the plan is at this point. As far as the CRF goes, it's the same thing we voted on last year. It's the same numbers. They've just pulled one thing off and said you can either have it $200 but you don't get this, or you can have it $300 and you get everything. Well, $325. If it was me last year, if that was what we needed to do, like, okay, we know people want a pool. Let's say it's $200 for a CRF and it's $150 for the pool because now we're putting in an extra amount of capital. They say they won't put another amenity in without paying for that amenity in the capital. Well, let's add that capital into that amount that the people are voting for. At least then you get, we may not all agree on the amounts that are in the CRF, so we're saying, okay, that $200 we're not sure about yet. You guys come back to us with that next year. But we want this pool and it's $150 and we vote for that. But right now we don't have that opportunity. We have to vote for A to get B. And I do not like that. I don't think that was done right at all. So let me go down the list of other questions we had. Alcohol on carts. I'm not a fan of drinking and driving. I think that's ridiculous. It's a state law. There's federal laws. That's the same thing here. And as far as if you're talking about somebody putting a 6-pack of beer on their cart to go to their neighbors and their wife drives them home, that's not a big deal. That's nothing. Speed limit. I'm fine with speed limit. My daughter's driving. I think my cart is too fast for her now. If it went 8 miles an hour, I'd be happy with that. Curfew and quiet time, I'm good with that. Associate sign in, I kind of feel the same way Jenny did. If I'm having somebody out here, I want to know I signed them in. I don't necessarily think the associate should. If you're an associate, that means you're kind of a guest. You have a card that you can get in, but you're still a guest of the member and you should have enough. You should tell the member who's coming. The member's responsible, so they need to know what's going on. I used to camp here. I never knew I could sign anybody in. I don't think they can. That may have changed in the last few years. I can't say that I necessarily agree with that, but I haven't seen the rule that lays it out how it is, so I'm not sure really where to go on that one. The Fire Gene one, that's a funny one, and I'll tell you why. Because I've had some, I won't say personal attacks since I've decided to run, but I've heard all kinds of rumors that I'm everything from I want to get rid of the chapel, which in case anybody's heard that, that's absolutely not true. And that one of my biggest agendas is to fire Gene. Absolutely not. It takes board members to fire Gene. I'm one board member if I get elected. Even if I had the opinion that he's doing the worst job I've ever seen, but the other 8 board members think I'm crazy, there's nothing I can do. It takes all 9 board members to fire Gene, or it takes a majority of them. It's not one person. It's not 2 people. It's not 3 people. So, let's take Gene's name out of this because it's not even fair to say that. It's the park director. Whoever is the park director, if they are failing to do their job to the point where 5 or 6 members of the board decide he needs to go, that's the decision of the board. It's not one person or 2 person or a personal agenda. So quite honestly, if the park director fails, the board has failed because they have not either given him enough direction or they've lacked the oversight and let him run wild to the point where it's come to that. So that's where I'm at with that.
I got a question on
the
park, Don Delano, Site 804. On the park president, if you become a member and get voted in, would you look into it and find out how it came from being a park director to a park president And how much more authority does he have as a park president compared to what he has as a park director? And how did that happen?
I've heard this, Don. I'm not exactly sure the answer. I think it was more of a title change. I'm not sure if there was more power given, but I could certainly look into it. The other one that I'll hit on, and everybody probably knows my stance on this already because I come to the board meetings and I voice my opinion, the guns and tasers. Not in favor of guns, didn't vote for them, thinks it's ridiculous. Tasers, same thing. But one of the questions I've always asked is what brought this policy up? And nobody's answered. The question I've always got is our insurance company said that we needed to have a policy for this. So they've told us we needed to have a policy. But they didn't dictate what the policy is as far as my understanding. I've asked tons of questions. So a policy to me would be don't have your rangers go into a situation where a deputy sheriff should be called. If there's a domestic something going on at a trailer, I don't think it's our ranger's responsibility to go deal with a drunken domestic violence issue or something like that. He should probably go make sure nobody else gets involved, stays away till the sheriff gets there. I'm a tax-paying member of Allegan County. I live as far away from the sheriff's department as this campground is. I have to believe that in Allegan County, they have a response plan for their second biggest city in the county during the summer for violent response, domestic response. That's all got to exist. One of the other questions I asked a couple years ago of the board and some other people, and it never got answered, was, I captain a boat in Saugatuck, and on the weekends in Saugatuck, it's very busy. There's lots of drunks. So they bring in the reserve deputies from Allegan County. They pay a certain amount, and they booster their police force. So they have their police force, and then they bring in the Allegan County Sheriff's Department, and they bring in the reserve deputies and normal deputies. I'm like, why couldn't we do that on busy weekends and times that we need that? What's the cost for that? Not until last face-to-face did anybody ever say the cost of that. And it was $40,000. I don't remember the exact amount of time they would be here, but I thought to myself, okay, if that's every busy weekend in the summer, I'd fund that 3 times. I'd advocate to fund $120,000. We have actual sheriff's deputies patrolling and taking care of these problems that are supposedly the issue. So it's the policy that I disagree with. It's the route that this policy went. We voted as members, whether it was an advisory, but it was our advice to the board not to bring on guns, anything. And up until June, and it's still an open-ended policy. It can still come back. If you guys heard them in the face-to-face, they'll review it in a year. We told them we didn't want it reviewed at all. We don't want it. That was pretty black and white to me. The CRF, like I said, I think we need a CRF. I'm not disagreeing that we need it. I just don't like the one that's being proposed right now. If they could come back with something that made more sense, I would certainly vote for one. But when I ask questions and I can't get hard numbers to back them up, it leads me to believe that I'm not opposed to giving the $325. I just want to know what it's going for, and I haven't really got a good answer for that. Anybody have any questions for me?
I meant to try to make my way up earlier for anybody, but sorry about that. How do you feel, number one, about, like we talked about associate members, would you feel that would anyone want to hear back from membership on how they feel about such things? I don't hear that a lot. I hear answers of opinions. Also, I'd like to know, would you support something that says anything that has generating revenue in the park, like say our cabins? Would it make sense to say 20% of that a year gets set aside for rebuild and maintenance instead of coming, all that revenue gets spent in operations? And now we're coming to members and saying we need more money from you for capital. Well, why aren't we setting aside money from things that generate revenue to pay for themselves?
I'd gladly hear from members about the associate topic. And I'll go back to a gentleman that was up earlier, Jeff, who's one of my neighbors. We've had this conversation a lot over the campfire, is if we've raised that money to fund our operational reserves, then why can't the same thing be applied to fund our capital reserves? Now, the answer that I've always gotten is they figured that in, but there's still a shortfall. But it seems to me that's a lot of money we've generated in 3 or 4 years that we're asking for a whole lot more money, and I can't, nobody can tell me the gap between that, and that's where I don't understand.
Boat stakes.
Yeah, boat stakes. Boat stakes is a tricky issue. I understand why they go with the lots, because they do add value to the lot. But I also agree that there's a lot of boat stakes here that I've never seen a boat on. If you don't have a boat, you should probably give up your boat stake. And I think that's a hard issue to deal with, and I think it does have to be looked at. I know there's even some lots, I don't know how many, but I know there's some that have 2 boat stakes because years ago they could, and they've been grandfathered in over all this time. As the park grows, we need to figure out a better solution for it. Quite honestly, I've been on this lake some days. I think we should have less boat stakes. I know I could get skewered for that because I've got one and I'm on my boat, but it gets crazy out here. If anything, I'd say we need to have boater education courses for people.
So, per the bylaws, Sandy Pines only exists for its members. And as members, we're the ones that fund the park. So my question to you is, and I wanted to ask this to Ginny, but I didn't get a chance to get up here, is we can agree or disagree about guns and tasers. What I'm concerned about is that there was a member vote. That vote was not an advisory vote. It was a real vote. And I'd like to know where you stand on it being overturned when the members have had their say.
I quite honestly, I think it's ridiculous. I think they're skirting a line with the tasers, and from what I understand, had some of the current board members not spoke up, guns would have been on the agenda in the June meeting. So there's obviously a track record that that's not going away, and until more board members speak up and take care of that open-ended policy that's there and say this is not going to ever be a policy, it's a dead issue because the membership said. That's the way I feel about it.
Would you be willing to let Ginny answer? I really wanted to know where she stood on that overturning of the members' vote.
We'll give everyone 2 minutes at the end to respond to anything quickly.
Oh, John, you're coming back at me.
Coming back. Site 804. Question for you. I belong to a board member in Florida. We have 925 members, and I'm up for re-election this year. I have transparency in our board. Our board is opened up to anybody who wants to come and sit in it as long as they're quiet, and they can open up at the end of the meeting. I'm asking you, what do you think about transparency for our board to open up this meeting so people can see what's going on and how we work as a unit here? Because we're not working as a unit here. We're working against everybody.
That's the perception. I'm going to tell you, the board has a Monday planning meeting that nobody's allowed to come to. I think it violates the bylaws. Personally, I'd invite anybody that wanted to come. They'd probably be bored out of their mind from what I understand happens there, but it's been told to me, well, it's a planning session. People plan better in private. No, it's not a planning session. It may be a planning session, but whatever the board is planning has to do with the members, and that should be open to the public. There's 3 things that can be a closed board session: personnel, disciplinary, and something else. But there's 3 specific things in the bylaws that say when that meeting can be closed. Not to say that on that Monday plan, you're going to say we're going to have a planning meeting, we're going to post it, but we're not going to let anybody talk. At that planning meeting, that's not a spot for members to talk, but you certainly would be more than welcome to come and observe what happens, and if you can stay awake for the whole thing, more power to you. But then when the board meetings come around, the face-to-face, that's when you have the opportunity to ask the questions. So I understand that they need these meetings, but they have to be open, to be transparent and be public.
All right, well, we have 60 seconds left. If you want to ask your question, and then we'll talk about what will happen next.
Well, I was to a face-to-face and I asked about the pool. Why aren't we given the information on how much the pool's going to cost and exactly what we're going to get? Well, I was told to go online. There was a drawing of what was proposed. And in that drawing was a hotel, a recreation station, and an indoor pool. Well, what happened to our adult center? And where did this hotel come in at? And then I was told, well, that was never supposed to be shown to us. That was someone's putting information out there that we weren't really supposed to see. Why can't we have this information before we vote of showing us what we're going to get if we pass these votes.
Well, I think that was the attempt, but like I brought up earlier, I sat this in a board meeting at the end of last year and told them they needed to form a committee then, and they needed to do that over the winter, and that didn't happen. So I'm as problemed by that as you are.
Well, if you get elected, are you going to try to do that?
Oh yeah, trust me. I understand why people wouldn't vote for, because how can you vote for something you don't understand what it's going to be or what it is and what it costs? And a committee and some engineering plans could have done that. I can't go to one of my customers and tell him to buy something from me without providing plans and quotes.
Right.
And it costs me to have plans drawn up, and it costs me, overhead for my company to do those quotes. But it's a cost of doing business, and that's what you do if you want something.
And why can't we get a list of what they have plans for the CRF that they want us to pass?
That's the current
Just
board.
to
That's
give
our
us
question.
a
Well, I'm going to cut
I've
in
asked
here
the
for
same
a
question
minute.
to them.
Well, thank you very much. And what we wanted to do was we go ahead for Charles. I think it was hard for some of the candidates, who had questions earlier on. So if we can stick to a strict 2-minute time limit, we could start at the end with Rick Day, and we'll give each candidate 2 minutes just to kind of give their closing remarks.
Sure, thank you. I just want to be cognizant of your time. I just want to thank you for coming out on a beautiful Saturday night and asking us all your questions and trying to get some input and feedback. I'm like everybody that sits up here, we're not perfect. If you want someone that's going to sit up here at this board meeting and look pretty and nod every time the chairperson or the manager, president, whatever you want to call them, says nods, nod, everybody nod, that's what we do, then skip over my name on the ballot because I'm not your man. If you want someone that's going to promise that I'll come and be involved, be 100% engaged, I live close by, be an active board member, we'll work to get the agenda items posted in advance of any meeting so everybody has an opportunity to look at them. Make sure that there's options for input from the members. Not that, like I said, we can agree to disagree, and I'm not going to agree with everybody, but I will absolutely give everybody a chance to have open dialogue and give me your feedback on what we're doing. And as far as like getting studies done for all the guns and all that, again, I'll tell you, the only study that needs to be done is ask the membership. And you guys have spoke loud and clear, as did I. The Rangers do not need guns now or in the future. I don't care what some professional that they hire comes and tells us what we need. We will say what we need in our park. And if that's what you want, then please vote for me and support me. Thank you.
Thank you. I got to go first, so everybody else had a list of questions when they started. I didn't. I can tell you that I have always been an independent thinker. I have made mistakes in the past. I also am one of the first persons that if I get something wrong, I will stand up and say, you know what, I got it wrong. If there's somebody in here that's never made a mistake or got it wrong, God, I want to meet them because I want to know how they're doing it. But I'll work hard. I was president of my condo association. The reason I gave that job up is because I wanted to spend time out here and I couldn't dedicate enough time to that job out there. I stay here full time in the summer. I'm willing to dedicate the time and do whatever it takes to keep this place as nice as it is. I love this place. I fell in love with it as soon as I got here. I bought a place right away, and I actually had my wife retire early simply so we could spend the summers out here. And we are here from the water goes on till the water goes off. As far as some of the other issues, the guns and whatnot, I already told you I'm against them. I voted against them. I don't want them. Trying to think what else I missed that other people got asked. As far as the CRF, I can understand some of the arguments, and I do understand that a lot of it is about trust versus money. But the problem is with a 10-year plan, and I've dealt with this in my own situation back home when I was president, is you cannot plan for every contingency. So you have to have money coming in. You do as best as you can.
All right, we are at time.
Thank you. I hope you can vote for me.
Thank you for giving us all time to be here tonight. I know I, for one, was extremely nervous. So thank you for listening to us and bearing with us and understanding that we are not perfect. If I do get elected to the board, I will do my best to listen to the members. Again, we're not all going to agree. We are all very different individual people. That's the way God made us. But I will do my best to listen, and I will do my best to hear you and talk to you and encourage you to get involved, encourage you to be on a committee, encourage you to come to meetings. Get involved, get the facts, listen to everybody that has the facts. And I think we can all get along much better if we're all on that same page, at least, without gossip and rumors, and that's going to happen. But this is my happy place, and I think it is yours too. And I would love to keep it that way, and I would love to have your vote. Thanks for listening tonight.
Kind of like to echo everybody's thanks for you guys coming out tonight. It's a really nice day out there, so I know it's hard to sit inside. You know, I kind of want to echo some of Rick's statements. I live in Allegan County. I live here in town. I'm here all year. One of the things that I think I bring to the candidacy, or being a candidate, is I don't look at this as a 6-month board job. If I'm elected, it's year-round. It's something, like I said, we should have been working on things over the winter. I'm here. I'm ready to dedicate that time. I love this place. It's the only reason I'm doing this. I could spend my time doing other things, but I feel like this place is worth my time, my abilities, and the people that are here are worth doing that for. I know there's people that can't do it, don't have the time, not the type of personality that don't want to do it. I feel like I can do it. I'm willing to do it. I will listen to the members, and that's why I'm doing it. I think it'll be a very rewarding experience for myself, and I hope it's rewarding for the people that help me get elected, that I can do the job that they want me to do.
Again, I'm going to echo the fact that we really appreciate everyone coming. I know it's been hard to sit on those hard chairs. I know your bum has to hurt as much as mine does. But I do want to say that I didn't really get an opportunity to explain all of why I was not voting for the CRF. I want to just make sure that you understand it doesn't mean that I don't think it's necessary. There's no way any of us here can think that. We just wanted to make sure that they understood with the vote how we felt about it. And if you do vote for me, I promise to make sure that everything I do is transparent, that I give honest answers, and I'm a factual person. I have to make sure that things are data collected, and I will make sure that that happens for you. And the other thing is that I want to make sure that you know that I always desire to do the right thing. And that means I will abide by the bylaws, and I will be the advocate for the members. Thank you so much for your time.
I too want to say thank you for coming. It's really a good forum. As board members, we all have to listen and take in that feedback and consider it carefully. As I said in my comments, I'm a very strong supporter of the Capital Reserve Fund. We need to plan for the future. And there are things that are going to come up in that over the 10 years that we're going to have to pay for that we're not even aware of at this point in time. That has been my experience in the school system, been my experience in the city. If you have a water main that leaks, you're going to fix it no matter what. It has to be done. So that's one of the purposes of a long-range plan. It's the purpose of a reserve fund. If you go online and look at it, there's line by line and year by year but they can't tell you today exactly what is going to be spent on in that capital reserve fund, because it is for maintenance, and sometimes there are things that happen that have to be done. You don't have a choice. So I think Sandy Pines is a great place. We love being here. We have 4 grandsons. They love coming here. And I'm willing to give the time that's necessary to serve on this board of directors, and whatever it takes. And I also believe we have to be very, very transparent. No matter what happens, I think you have the right to know how those decisions are made and why they're being made. And I really think if you go online and look, you will find most of the answers you need. Plus, don't be afraid to talk to the professional staff. They have the answers and they know. I've done that a lot. And if I have questions, some of the questions I know that you come up with, I've already heard the answers because I was willing to dig and to look for the information. As members, that's
All right,
part of
we
our
are at
responsibility.
time.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I want to thank everybody, myself, for coming here tonight and giving our candidates a chance to speak to you and answer your questions. I have a lot of respect for each and every one of them. I thank them for running and stepping up, which a lot of people don't do. It is a wonderful experience. I've enjoyed the 3 years that I've been on the board myself. I really hope I made a difference. And to the candidates, Josh from Member Service will be emailing each one of you 10 questions on Monday, with a deadline to return your completed questions. Your responses will also be posted on the Sandy Pines website for all members to review prior to voting. And again, I want to thank everyone and our candidates, and have a good evening. Thank you.